Welcome to Expat Hoops, the show where we interview professional basketball players who have played outside of the U.S. Our guest in the pod today is Jordan Hawkins. This is an all Maryland pod, as Jordan is a Glen Burnie native.
Before we get to the interview, though, just another reminder to any new listeners that you can find all of our content on expathoops.com, as well as merchandise, so you can wear our logo with pride. And for our audio listeners, you can find exclusive extra content on YouTube. Also, if you like our content, be sure to share it through YouTube, on socials, all that good stuff to spread the word. Now, if you'll join Tony and I in welcoming Jordan to the pod. Welcome to the pod, Jordan.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So you are a Glen Burnie native, went to Glen Burnie High School as we talked off the pod, but your college journey went to Wilmington University for a year, not to be confused with UNCW, and then finished at Assumption College. So Division II standout career. What would you say was kind of the moment where you thought you could go play professional, or if somebody came to you and said, you might want to pursue some professional opportunities overseas?
Well, it was for me, like I've always wanted to play professional. I think the lucky thing is that, I did have two parents who actually played professional. My father played football and my mother played professional basketball as well. And she always told me like playing professional basketball overseas. For me, when I thought it was like a tangible thing, because like I never really saw girls from going from D2 playing professional, even like from WNBA or even um, overseas around my age. So like I would say going to Wilmington University and meeting an alumni who went there, played there, did great, and was able to go play overseas and play overseas for years, and then going to Assumption and like talking to the coaches, and they told me like they have sent girls overseas just playing Division II, and I just knew like, okay, this is actually a tangible goal for me to achieve.
And so with that, with your background, not only with your parents, but in terms of the coaching staff, when it did become time to actually go professional, what did that look like for you as a Division II athlete in terms of trying to find an agent? Who was particularly helpful for you in that particular period of time? Because you graduated from Assumption in 2019, and just skipping ahead just a little bit to your first season, you, I think by July, were playing over in Serbia. So what did the in-between time between your ending at Assumption, your playing career anyway, look like between then and July of 2019?
Well, I was just after like the season was over and I knew I was done playing college basketball. I was honestly just asking questions from my current college coaches at that time, asking them to see like what their connection was, and even asking like my former college coach from Wilmington University uh, for her help to help me. And then my parents was able to be friends with like people in different college coaches, especially in Division II, and they one of them he used to be the head coach of Delaware State, and he came and like said like, okay, this agent, he works with a lot of girls, especially in lower divisions, the lower division schools. Like he will be able to help you. And I contacted him. It's crazy. I contacted him on LinkedIn, and he answered. I gave him during that time. I was making my highlight tape, getting on my game film, making my basketball resume, and was able to send that to him. He liked what I had, signed me to his agency. Like literally, I graduated on a Mother's Day. The day after Mother's Day, signed him as an agent. So that was great. Vacation, my graduated vacation, and then just went to working. So I was able to get my first contract in July to go to Serbia.
And so, once you got started in Serbia, first of all, did you have a lot of experience going overseas just as you went through school or anything like that? Or is this your first experience being in another country, let alone living in another country, first and foremost? And secondly, what was it like playing basketball in Serbia?
Oh, not all. Well, first of all, not all. This was like my first time ever being overseas. Like I never even had like my own passport. by that time. So like, which that was new, trying to get that together. Playing in Serbia, it was definitely very, very different. I think first of all, like Serbians, they're very passionate people, and they're very passionate about their basketball, and they take their basketball very, very seriously.
That they
Which,
do.
yeah, which I definitely appreciated. Like one of the crazy things, it was like, it was some weeks like we would like literally practice 2 times a day, every single day, and like we'll practice 2 times a day every single day. We also have two games per week because I played in 2 different leagues. So like
Interesting.
two different, so 2 time practice, then a game, and we still have two practice 2 times a day, and even sometimes when we're supposed to have off, we would still practice. So that was definitely a very hard adjustment. Also with being overseas with getting no calls as an American. I remember it was like one of my first games, and I got like punched in the mouth, and like the ref just looked at me and told me to get up. I just had to get up
That's
and go
true
back.
school of hard knocks right there.
Yeah,
Literally.
yeah. It was like it was crazy, but it definitely, I would say Serbia definitely helped me grew up and grew up a bit, and then also coming from, like from Glen Burnie, Baltimore. It's a city area going to where I was in Serbia, Kraljevo. It was just walking from one end to the other end. It would take 15 minutes. So it was a very, very small town. So adjusting to that.
Yeah, things tend to they can get very big in a hurry in Europe, but man, can they get small in a hurry, especially when you get into those regions, the Balkans and points east of there. You said you played in 2 leagues. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So my first year I played in the Serbian league.
Mhm.
And then there was the team that was on also played on the WABA. It was the Women's Asiatic Basketball Association. So I also played against teams also in Serbia, but then also in Bulgaria, Montenegro,
Oh, okay.
Croatia, Slovenia.
Interesting. That's pretty
Yeah,
unique. It's like a regional professional basketball league then.
yeah. It's like it's
Okay.
it's, it's just like the Euro Cup, but
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'd actually never heard of the regional aspect of it before. I think that's the first time someone on our show has been part of like a strictly regional professional basketball league. So that's interesting as well. What was the play like in that league in particular?
Well, I would say comparing to like the Serbian league at the time I was playing, it was only me and another girl who was the only Americans. Everybody else were Serbian.
Hmm.
Um, but in the Adriatic League, it was like more different people. Like I seen more American, more different Europeans playing in the league. I would say, in compared to the also called WABA, compared to the Serbian league, it's more up and down. They're more able to call fouls in that league compared to the Serbian league. It's more very gritty, very like you better earn every single point you get.
So you started that year. You were talking about that season. You played with the Serbian team, and then you played in Bucharest for Agronomia Bucuresti. So compare and contrast the Romanian league and the Serbian league, if you could.
I would say it's better. I would say it's better competition compared to the Serbian league and the Romanian league, because the crazy thing is a lot of the best Serbians don't really play in the Serbian league. Like
Mm,
like all the best player Serbians, like even like I met like better Serbian players playing in the Romanian league compared to Serbian league. So the Romanian league was much more competitive. One of the best teams, was also a Euro Cup team. It was definitely more. It definitely played more to like what I like, because I do like the physical game, but then also incorporated the up and down, which it was definitely more fluid. to the basketball game. So, which I definitely like and appreciate it.
And since you talked before that you didn't even have a passport before you went to Serbia, going to Bucharest, that's a bigger city than you had played in Serbia as well. What was that like off the court?
It was actually pretty cool. The team that was on Agronomani, they were like, they was like a cool group of girls. I think, out of all the teams that I was on, that team was the most, like, I would say, family type team. Like, we would go out, eat together, hang together off the court. Like, in practice, we were so close in practice. Like, were we the best team? No, we weren't the best team in the league, but we were definitely close with each other and everything. And they knew like this is my first year being out of the country. So, and they wanted to like show their country with pride and like show like the good things about Romania. So they would like teach me a little Romanian words, which I totally forgot. And then
Yeah,
it would
that's
go
not the
like,
easiest language in the world to get.
no,
Even for
it's
people
not.
that speak like Spanish and have a second language in their helm, that's difficult.
Yeah, so yeah, and it would take me to places, to like clubs, bars, and different restaurants, which I definitely really, really appreciated.
Well, and that's something that in 2019, well, it was 2019 into 2020 into March. Glad you got to do that, because in March of 2020, COVID really kind of
Yeah.
begins in earnest globally. Anyway, I mean, it's been kind of brewing for a little while, and then you probably got your COVID story as well. Most people on this pod have one. Fortunate that you were able to get to see not only portions of Romania, but Bucharest at that point in time. But you've also been back to Romania a couple times in the following seasons. But what was your COVID story like in terms of having the league shut down and trying to get back home?
Well, okay, it was just crazy because like my first year, I didn't have like no VPN or nothing, and so I always watched what like the Romanian TV, and I couldn't speak the language, so the only thing that was like in English was CNN. So I saw the whole COVID thing happen gradually, each step of the way, and it was really frightening, because Romania, I felt like, was honestly one of the last countries in Europe. They was like, we're gonna cancel the league is suspended, everybody go home. So
It was a few
like,
months before cases really started to rise in Romania in terms of Europe. It was one of
yeah,
the last places that it hit.
yeah. So like, seeing, other players that I knew from Maryland and other countries, they were already back home. And then, I had friends and family. They just kept calling me every single day, like, blah blah blah. You need to come home. You need to like come home. It's not safe out there. One thing I would say, like, it kind of started hitting me even before that. Like, had a chance to play on the 3-on-3 tournament in Japan, and like that got canceled because the whole COVID cases were rising in Japan, which I was like, wow, because like my mother, her first stop was in Japan, was able to go, and like if I had a chance to go to Japan, that would have been great for me, especially with my basketball resume. But yeah, when it was a time when I think the United States, when they said like the travel ban and being like all the Americans overseas, y'all gotta come. I would think that was the time I literally went to the president, the owner. I was told him like, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta get back to my country. And he was definitely pretty cool with it, because he was definitely understood, because the safety was definitely important. And like the next 2 days, they got me a plane ticket, and I was back home in the United States.
So actually a relatively smooth COVID story.
Yeah.
We've definitely heard some tales. So that's good from you. At
Yes.
least it's not a crazy story, but it doesn't necessarily make for good content. But at the same time, it's like, oh, thank goodness you were able to get back home
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
But you actually alluded to it a little bit off the pod too. The next season, you did split time between Greece and Romania, but Greece first. So when you were going back, I don't really want to say post COVID because we're still in COVID, but post, I guess, one of the first waves of COVID. What was your process like between coming home and ultimately deciding on going back to Greece? And weighing your offers, not only in terms of, which one's going to give me, the best opportunity, best money, but also in terms of, did you have some kind of weighing of like, okay, what is COVID like in particular countries?
I would say like only thing I was worried about, like I really wasn't really worried about the COVID and the COVID protocols, which I should have, because when I went to Greece, they really, I would say they really didn't take the COVID protocols very stringently, especially for women's basketball. So I was there at Greece like for a month, and then I had to leave because it was like the league got suspended, and also the country is about to shut down. And I didn't want to get stuck in the country, and also they wasn't going to pay me until like the country full. And I was like, I'm not going to stay in a country that I don't know. But when I went to Greece, um, they really didn't do any testing. I did a testing like when I got off the plane for, I guess, the country, but when I was there, they didn't really they really didn't test and did like daily testing and testing. But like in Romania, when I went to Romania, it was like by rule by the federation that, every at least like every week or twice a week we had to do testing, and like you had to report on it. Like you had to report on it. Like you can't do no funny business, which like I was happy they did it. But like when I left, the team, the team that was on the Simone Costanza team, I knew one of the girls like very heavily. One of the girls, her name's D. She told me they was going to like lie and said they took the test and nobody had and COVID, and like the team just was like, no, like this is so serious situation type deal. So like, I felt like, going into year two, I should have like took more protocols of like seeing what COVID situation was like. But I just, for me, after year one, just loving how being overseas was, I just wanted to, I was more worried about when I'm going to get back, because I was just worried about like, are they going to have seasons? Like, can I get back? Will I get back? And just wanting to just go back and play basketball.
And so I did want to mention quickly, because you did mention the team that you played for in Romania in your second season, Phoenix CSU Simona Halep. We talked to you off the pod. I just wanted to mention that on the pod as well, that is indeed, if our listeners recognize the name, the professional tennis player Simona Halep, who was a sponsor of the team, as you mentioned to us off the top of the pod. Let's head to season 3. So you're back in Romania the next season. This is post COVID boom. What was that like, getting back into action for you in full time once the European leagues really started to get back in their normal schedule of things?
It was actually more, it was more smooth sailing. At that time, there was like we had vaccinations and all that stuff, so we still had to do testing every week because I would say back in year two, they used to do, they we used to have like different like all the teams would go to one site and play 2 or 3 games, and they go back and then we practice more, and then we go to another site and play 2 games. Now this time it's like on the regular swing of things, so we're not like in the quote quote bubble no more. We're able to like do like the 1 game a week travel type deal. It was, we did have like, I would say we did have like one of the COVID scares for one of like the foreigners who came in with me. Like she got COVID. It really wasn't bad with the COVID situation in Romania, but like when I went to Germany, it actually got really bad
Mm.
with the COVID situation in Germany.
Yeah, and that was after your stint with Romania starting in December 21 to S&P Boskats Heidelberg.
Yeah.
Um, so tell us about that then, since things with COVID tended to get a little bit bad. That was, of course, the um, second winter of 2021 spike, which had to do a lot with Delta.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
feel
it
like I'm an
was.
immunologist right now on this podcast. Just we're going on and on about COVID, which you got to talk about it, but it's like I'm trying to explain the situation. And I'm like,
Yeah,
am I
like
getting this?
it was a real life. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Like the first few years of my me being professional basketball, it deals with COVID.
yeah,
Like so, yeah, it was just like it was crazy because like it wasn't just my team, it was multiple teams hitting it with it. And the one thing about overseas, like the girls in the country, like they not only like just play basketball for their team, they also like have regular jobs. So like
mhm.
I knew girls who were like girls that were going to school, going to university. Other girls who was also a sports therapist. Was Another one was a teacher. So they're also contact with other people who don't play the sport. So it's very hard to like you know keep that together and keep it like an us team in a bubble. So and then we're playing with other girls who also have like two jobs too, the country
Yeah. I
who play
mean, that's
games.
not a bubble at all. Let's be real.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's not even close to a bubble. That's the opposite of a bubble. There, you're exposed to everyone all the time in that sort of situation, and that's something unique because what tier was that in Heidelberg in terms of where the team was located on the tiers of German basketball?
I was first league.
First league. So you were German first league. Like this
Yeah.
is cream of the crop kind of stuff, and you're
Mhm.
still holding down a second job and all that stuff. The men, in many cases, probably didn't have to do that, right?
Yeah, isn't yeah, but that's just a. I would say like that's just a thing. You got people that think about it like we see it with with the here in the United States with the how much NBA makes money, and you see how little WNBA
Oh yeah.
makes little money. It's
Hmm.
the same thing overseas.
Yeah.
Overseas,
It's
like
always an
they treat it
unfortunate
better.
elephant in the room when we interview women on the podcast. It's just kind of the
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, it's a reality, but it's like I feel like it's a reality for like a lot of us women's basketball players. We honestly understand, and it's just like we take it out. It is what it is. Like
Mm.
we here to do this because we love the sport, and then we also want to see the growth of sport. And if it may not happen like in my time, hopefully, and in the next lifetime, like we was a part of making women's sports to being greater, where like you won't see, even like overseas, you wouldn't see like the girls in the country taking second jobs
Yeah,
in order
for
to
sure.
support themselves.
Yeah, and situations like you went through in COVID and all that kind of stuff that might not have to happen again for sure.
Right.
Talk to us about the play in the Bundesliga, though. How was that in and on the court?
It was definitely very, very tough. I was honestly very surprised. Was able to get an offer from there because I never thought like by from where I was, for year three, being able to play in like top league Germany, like that's like one of like considered like I would say top tier one of the best leagues in
Oh yeah,
there.
for sure.
So it was definitely a new experience. I definitely liked it. Like my first couple games, I figured out like yes, like I can play here. Yes, I do. Like I can play here and compete and do well here. And it's crazy because like for me, I came from Division 2 school,
Hmm.
and I'm playing with and against people who went to like Louisville and Georgetown and Lehigh University, and it's just like, and like I am one of them. So that's why I'm just like when I also tell like people like it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter where you school. It's just you're just playing ball. You're just hooping at
Yep.
the end of the day.
And that's one of the things that whether it's men or women, that overseas gets to be a really unique blend of like you will see some top schools like some power fives or whatever, but you'll also see some people that go to Division 2 or Division 3 that string together some really long, really good careers overseas. And after a certain period of time, it really doesn't matter where you went. It just matters how you're playing.
Right. And it's just like one thing is like with the thing is like and like I tell people and I tell like I would say like because now my little cousins they're getting playing sports. I want to play sports in college, and I've always like tell them like it doesn't matter like D2, D2, D1, D3. It really doesn't matter. At first, first you should think about getting a good education because sports is not going to last long. And second is like if you're good, they will find you. Like I knew a guy, he went to such college with me, Deontay Harris. He's from Baltimore, and he's actually playing wide receiver out of in the New Orleans Saints, and he came from D2 football. So like if you're good, like they will find you. Like I feel like with most people, I feel like into going into like those big division ones, I feel like, and me personally, I feel like a lot of these girls and guys are able to get into like these big D1 or D1 schools. A lot of them get in there because of politics of where they go, where they play AAU and everything like that and stuff. Because like I knew a lot of girls that I played against and have bettered them in like high school and like AAU, but they was able to go to Division 1 school because the team they played on, the better travel team they was on.
So you've now played 3 seasons, 4 different countries. Romania has been the common denominator in each season. Serbia, Romania, Greece, and Germany. And I think you mentioned Japan at one point was an opportunity that you would have had it not been for COVID. So what does the future of your career look like to you in terms of which countries do you kind of have on like a bucket list, if you will, to play in?
Well, like of course I would say in the bucket list I always wanted to play is like France. Like I've always wanted to play in France. Like everybody has told me like France is like one of like the best leagues in the world, especially for women's basketball. But honestly, for me, it's just I just want to play in the best league that I can get the best out of me. Honesty, like like it doesn't matter. Like it could be France, it could be Hungary, it could be Spain. Like it could, yeah. So it could be Italy. I'm just here looking for the ride and just growing myself as a player and also as a person, and just can't wait for all the more opportunities I can have.
And what does a summer look like for you? I mean, in addition to training, which we talked a little bit off the pod, that's what you're doing. When do you usually start getting offers rolling in and starting having to decide where you're going to be going the next year?
It's usually around I would say it's usually around July, August, around like when I usually get the offers and interest. Right now it's just right now I'm like, when I got back home, I took a little vacation, see friends and family. And right now I'm just, working out, playing 5-on-5, playing in like different summer leagues around the state just to keep my wind up and run up, and just being around family until like I have to go again and leave again for like 6-7 months.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Jordan Hawkins, has been a pleasure having you on our pod today, Glen Burnie, Maryland native. And if you want to stick around, for those of you who are listening on our audio channel, please head over to our YouTube channel where we have our Expat Extras. That's our unique content that you only find on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and scroll over to another playlist and wait for that content to come out as well. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and on other channels just to make sure that you don't miss any of our extra content. Jordan Hawkins, nice to talk with you. Stick
Nice
around
to
for a
talk
little
with
bit.
y'all too.